I was diagnosed as major depressive disorder, PTSD, every good old label in the DSM book they can throw at you. And, I got to say, it wasn't a warm, fuzzy feeling when someone tells you you're this or you're that. And, we get hung up on the stigmas and the acronyms. And to me, it was just a pitfall. And at that point in my life, relationships were never going to work. Jobs were never going to stick because I did not identify my values. So literally just over a year ago, I had my second divorce, and I found myself in my apartment with a gun in my hand, barrel in my mouth, crying like a child. And I couldn't understand why it wouldn't stop. Why the pain just would not stop.
Hey guys, this episode is brought to you by Point Blank Safety Services. These guys are changing the game when you think about security. They are using active duty officers on their off-duty time. Not only giving these officers an additional income, because we all know police officers just aren't paid that well, but they're giving them off-duty income and using the highest caliber of people to secure our highways, our buildings, and bridges. Check them out at pointblanksafety.com.
Hey guys, it's going to be a fun episode today. I'm bringing in a guy that's just one of those guys that seems like he's done everything you can possibly imagine in the world and then some. So it should be a fun episode, fun ride. So Patrick Mudge, welcome to the show, my friend. Tell us who you are. Tell us your journey.
Hi, Donnie. Well, as you said, I've kind of done a little bit of everything. My life has kind of been an adapt and overcome situation, I guess you could word it. And I started off growing up in the farms of Ohio, middle of nowhere, high school in the middle of a cornfield. Just strong work ethic, long hour kind of life. And I grew up always wanting to be a pilot. So, to keep the long story not too long, I ended up going to flight school in college at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in Daytona Beach, Florida. And of course, my graduation year was 9/11. So that really put a damper on the industry. Pilots were furloughed left and right, and getting a job as a flight instructor was about near impossible in the fall of 2001. So it was like, okay, what the hell am I going to do? I got a ton of debt and no direction in life. So I was trying to make plans, figure out what I was going to do. And in that same year, I was with my high school sweetheart, so to speak, and she also died in a car accident just 2 months prior to 9/11. So I was really trying to figure out what the hell I was going to do. And the short answer was, well, move back home, try to find a job, and make ends meet. So with no jobs in aviation, I was real fortunate enough to be offered a position as kind of a pseudo administrator at our local airport, which really was going nowhere, no money, long hours, and kind of bounced around working 2 or 3 jobs at a time. And I finally said, enough's enough. We're going to war and I want to be part of it. So, that's where I made the decision to enlist in the Navy. A lot of people ask, well, why didn't you go officer? Well, my grandfather worked for a living. He was enlisted. My great-grandfather was enlisted. I said, well, they all went Navy. I'm going Navy. So that's what I did. And, it was kind of a downer because when I enlisted and took the ASVAB and, dealing with a recruiter who actually happened to be a buddy of mine, that's a whole other story.
Right.
But, you take the test, they tell you what jobs you're going to do. And he goes, well, you're either going to be a crypto or you're going to be a nuke. And I went, well, I don't want to be either one of those. So he goes, well, that's what we have. I said, well, what's a nuke do? That sounds kind of interesting. He goes, oh, you're right on submarines. I'm 6'6", Donnie. I said, that ain't happening.
Yeah, unless you duck through those doorways.
Yeah. And he goes, oh, there's guys that do that all the time. I said, well, I'm not one of them, brother. So, so what's a crypto do? He goes, well, they're kind of, I don't know. He goes, they do classified stuff. They work with special forces. They work with intel communities. He goes, I don't know. I just know they do crypto. I said, okay, sign me up. So that's kind of how that worked. So I went in the service and, get through boot camp, graduated top of my class. I was real proud of that, made my family proud. And get to A school down in Pensacola, Florida, and they sit me down in front of a computer. And I said, this isn't a firearm. What is this? And they said, well, this is your school. You're going to learn how to use computers and how we do message trafficking and intel. And I just remember staring at a blank monitor, and I go, oh, my God, shoot me now. I can't do this. What did I sign up for? So I passed through the school, graduated with honors, another good accomplishment that I made. And they give you your dream sheet. Everybody remembers dream sheet.
Oh, yeah.
I remember my good buddies telling me.
I got a bunch of civilians that listen to this, so explain what a dream sheet is.
Well, dream sheet is when you're getting ready to take your orders to your next duty station, you put your number one choice on the top, your number two, then your number three, and you hope to get the top one, but
usually you get none of them.
Exactly. Usually we get none of them. So a buddy of mine made a suggestion. He goes, pick the place you don't want to go and put that first. I said, okay. So I put Norfolk. I said, I don't want to go to Norfolk. And then I made my last choice, Hawaii. Sounds like fun, right? So of course they cut the orders. I get Hawaii. And, I was like, wow, that tactic worked out pretty good.
I wish I would have thought of that because I didn't get anything that lucky.
So, that was a priceless piece of information somebody gave me, and I think it holds true to many folks, even still today. Always put your first choice last, and you're liable to get it. But, I'm not a detailer. I don't have much great things to say about detailers, but, it is what it is, and that's the way the system works. So anyways, I ended up in Hawaii under the NSA command in Hawaii. And, my security clearance had to transfer over. As any time you transfer in the military, your clearance has to transfer with you, and sometimes that takes a while. So they put me in a holding company, and in that holding company, when I checked in, we get the grunt work, which is swabbing decks and cleaning buildings, organizing hazmat, whatever they can find you to do, mow the grass. Well, as twisted as this may sound, at the time, there was a substantial risk of a terrorist threat on U.S. soil. And the NSA, along with the Navy, in one of the Joint Task Force commands, had implemented a augmented security program through the NSA, working with Special Forces in Hawaii. So they came to the holding company, and they also went into the command and said, hey, we have an issue. We have a situation. We're taking tryouts and volunteers. If you make it through, you can get all this extensive training. I said, well, does that mean I get to hang up the computer and grab a gun? And of course, the petty officer looks at me. He goes, yes, it does. I said, I'm in. So they had the fitness test the following week, which was pretty damn stringent, if I might add. And past that, I remember laying on the grass, and I go, did I make the time? And one of my actual good buddies today, he goes, oh, yeah, you made the time. You're good. I said, okay, I'm going to die now. So I just laid there, and I know you're supposed to stand up and walk around, but I made it. That was another accomplishment I felt I made because I didn't really feel like I had many up to this point. And, so anyways, the history of it was I finished out the 4 years, with the Naval Security Forces, working with some great, joint special ops teams and training guys that were in the intel community that actually embedded with, Naval Special Warfare Development Group, which, the civilian term is SEAL Team 6, even though that's not a real technical name, but, those ended up being good brothers of mine, and that's kind of what starts to lead me into where I'm at today. So
so let's recap before we dive into your world. That's a freaking mouthful of shit you just threw out there. So, and I don't want to bring up some of the bad stuff too much, but your high school sweetheart passes away 2 months right before 9/11. Mm-hmm. 9/11 happened. And then in my mind, you're one of the badasses that said, put me in, coach, I'm ready to play. When all shit goes south, you guys step forward, which makes you a hell of a lot more badass than I was when I went in, because I was in during the Clinton era and shit happened for 4 years, right? So good on you for that. You have the ability to go officer, and you choose to go enlisted. You want to go throw rounds down range, and you're freaking lugging away on a computer. I mean, you can't get a whole lot more Pogue stories than this one, brother. They couldn't give you some sort of harness to carry the computer around with you to throw it at you.
I'm sure if they wanted to, they would have.
But somehow through all of this, you finagle your ass into working with the NSF and the NSA and those guys to get geared up to battle terrorism on a damn near face-to-face level. That pretty much sum up everything?
Prepared for it, yes. Did I get the opportunity to actually go through DevGru and all that? No. That was my next option, and this is where things started to turn south. And this isn't the pretty story. This is the God naked nasty truth.
Bring it.
And this is where it starts to hit me. So as I'm getting ready to transfer and find orders after that 4 years, DevGru sounded really interesting. We had already trained guys that got orders to it, worked with them for a few years. And now ex-wife, but I got married in Hawaii. They decided they were going to do away with her job, and she had to pick a new job. So I started looking at those orders, and, Dam Neck, Virginia is nowhere near Fort Meade, Maryland. And, people say, oh, it's on the same coast. Yeah, but that's still a hell of a drive.
Yeah,
and I had a 1-year-old son at the time. So I said, well, I better start looking for a real job and, start being a father. So, good buddy of mine, Michael Strange, he ended up, getting orders to DevGru. He was pumped. We had a nice party for him and everything. He was best man at my wedding. Super great guy. And there's some other guys that were good friends of mine, that are still active. I'm not going to obviously mention their names at this point, but, anyways, I decided to make the decision to get out, be a family man, be a father, be there for my son. And, it was shortly after that I found myself working, for a DoD contractor in the DC area. It was a great career, worked in physical security, law enforcement, executive protection, very humbled by it, worked with all diverse backgrounds. I think the most comforting was working with other veterans. And what I started to see was working with guys who weren't veterans, I didn't get along with very well. And I didn't understand that till recently, so I don't want to get ahead of myself.
Right.
But a couple of years after I got out, it was, everybody knows about the Bin Laden raid in May 2011. And then it was August 2011 was the infamous Extortion 17. My friend Michael was on that bird and went down with the SEAL team from DevGru, which was the largest loss of casualty in the SEAL community, actually I think in the entire Navy community since World War II. So it hit me kind of hard, and I really started to go down a pitfall, because shortly thereafter, well, let me back up a little bit. Shortly there before that, my LPO, I found out, had committed suicide. My command master chief was killed in a car accident, and then my Divo died of unknown causes, to me at this point. So pretty much my entire chain of command and my best friend had died in about a 2-year period. And, kind of lost that sense of pride and value and direction in life. So, dealing with all that, back home, I just kind of plugged through the motions. We lost our contract, at the end of 2011 as a DoD contractor, and that was back to finding a job. So I'd only been out of the service for about 3 years, and I decided, well, maybe it's time to move back to my hometown and I can give back there in some way, shape, or form. Well, I was fortunate enough to get hired, as an administrator for the town that I worked in, and then eventually became the safety service director, managing the fire department, the police department, all the utility departments. And it was a good gig, but again, working with civilians, it wasn't working for me. And, at the end of the day, I was going to go home, put my head down on that pillow and not have any regrets because I already had enough and I didn't need any more. So just to compound on that, 8-9 months into that, my grandmother who raised me passed away. She lived a long, beautiful life, but it was just another death. And a couple more guys from the service had passed away that same year. One was a KIA. The other one was actually a brain aneurysm. It was very random. But ended up going through a divorce. I was diagnosed as major depressive disorder, PTSD, every good old label in the DSM book they can throw at you. And, I gotta say it wasn't a warm, fuzzy feeling when someone tells you you're this or you're that. And, we get hung up on the stigmas and the acronyms. And, to me, it was just a pitfall. And at that point in my life, relationships were never going to work. Jobs were never going to stick because I did not identify my values. So literally just over a year ago, I had my second divorce, and I found myself in my apartment with a gun in my hand, barrel in my mouth, crying like a child. And I couldn't understand why it wouldn't stop. Why the pain just would not stop. I tried to be physically active. I tried to be social. I would go to work and fake being happy, and I just couldn't break through. And I'll never forget the taste of hops number 9. It was just a bitter, awful taste. And it was probably 20 minutes after, I don't know how many episodes I went through this, my phone rang. And it was the chief that was my instructor when I went to NSA. That when I passed that fitness test, I told you I was laying on the grass, and I looked up and said, and he goes, "Hey brother, how you been?" And of course I lied. I said, "Oh, I'm doing great. It's life up here in Ohio, and everything's good and whatnot." He goes, "Well, I'm in Texas now, and I'm getting ready to retire. You should come down on vacation." I said, "Well, I don't know if now's a good time, but I definitely wouldn't mind visiting you." He goes, "Well, I want you to think about it." I said, "All right." So I hung up the phone, and something inside me clicked. And I thought to myself, what if I go back to hanging out with those guys that I used to hang out with, the ones that are still around, because there's not many. And I thought about it some more, and I said, you know what? Maybe I'll go on a little trip. So I take a vacation. I go down to Texas, visit with him and his wonderful family, his wife and kids. Absolutely fell in love with the state of Texas. And, we're down here in Lake Jackson, Texas, which is probably about, 5 hours south of you?
South of me, yeah.
And I went, I remember we picked me up from the airport, and the first place we went, not to name drop a store or anything, but he took me to H-E-B. And if anyone doesn't know, H-E-B is a very large grocery chain here in Texas. And, I'm from the Midwest, Donnie. So when we walk into the lobby of a grocery store, it's all soda and junk food and crackers, chips, cookies, all kinds of junk. And I remember walking in the store and I see a $9,000 smoker in the lobby. Exactly. I'm a big barbecue guy. I love to cook. As you probably saw in my bio, I had a lot of little cooking jobs here and there. But I said, man, they got it figured out down here. And everybody was so polite to each other. And, for some reason they can kind of pick up if you're a veteran or not. And they say, thank you for your service. And that's always an uncomfortable statement for me. People say, thank you for your service. I'm like, well, thank you. I mean, what do you say? You're welcome. I mean, that seems a little, out of ordinary.
But for me, I found one that seems to suffice me. So far, if it works for you, I just started saying my honor. And that seems to suffice it for me because it was my choice to go in the military. I mean, I didn't do it for anybody else. Same reason. I mean, you didn't really do it for anybody else. Yeah. It was just moving your life. So
no, I like it.
So borrow if you want it, but that's worked really well for me lately.
No, I like that. I'm going to steal that from you. I'm just letting you know now.
All yours. You can say you invented it. I'm fine with it.
I try to think of my words carefully when I can, but. So anyways, I finished up my vacation and absolutely loved Texas, went back to Ohio, and my ex-wife and kids also lived in Ohio. I have 2 boys, both with her. She's a great mother, and her job allowed her to work from home, and she's from the Orlando area in Florida, and she said, I'd really like to move to Florida. We want the kids to have a relationship with their grandparents as you had a relationship with your grandparents. And it allows me to have more support when you're working and whatnot. And I really thought about it, and it was one of the hardest decisions I ever made. And I said, It's not a matter of being there for my kids. It's a matter of what's best for my kids. And I took about 24 to 48 hours to really think it over. And I said, they need to have a good relationship with grandparents. I believe it's important, especially if they're still around and they want to be involved in your children's life. If they're good people, they can have a very profound impact, as I personally know it can. So I told her, I said, well, look, there's only one flight a day from Cleveland to Orlando, but there's 12 flights a day from Houston to Orlando. So if you want to do this, I will support you, and we'll work it out to where I can see my kids on a regular basis, and still kind of have that continuity and be a father and a role model for them. So instantly, I think she already had it planned out. She goes, okay, well, the movers will be here next week. I said, oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. At that
I'm
moment,
glad you asked for my opinion on the matter.
yeah. So I want to believe that she was waiting for me to say, okay, but I'm never going to ask that question. But, long story short, that moment hit me again. I was starting to feel depressed, realizing my kids are going to be over 1,000 miles away and I don't really have a plan. So Chief had decided to come up to Ohio and check on me. Well, wasn't really ready for that, but I welcomed him in, and he stayed at my place for a few days, and he says, hey, he goes, why don't you just move to Texas? And I said, brother, I can't move, I got a job and this and that. And he says, all I hear is excuses, brother. That's not the Patrick I knew. And I said, well, that's who I am now. And, I've got commitments and whatnot. And he asked me what my commitments were. And truthfully, they were all BS. It was a job that really wasn't going anywhere. And my heart wasn't in it. I mean, I felt like I was, but it really wasn't. So we go driving around and he says, hey, pull in here. And he takes me to this address. Turned out to be a U-Haul store. And he had already rented a trailer, and he walked in, swipes his card. He goes, here, you're good to go. Your U-Haul's paid for. I'm like, are you effing kidding me? Like, are you serious right now? He says, yeah, come crash at our house. We'll get you going, get everything worked out, whatnot. Figure out the details. When did this stuff ever matter? When we had to jump, we jumped. When we had to fight, we fought. Why are you worried now? And I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm moving to Texas. So, moved down here literally 1 year ago this week. And, one of the things that we committed to doing, I did work a job doing sales and insurance to make ends meet and pay the bills, obviously. And we sat down and we decided, what is it we wanted to do? I said, well, we need to open a company that can help veterans get through what you got me through, which, he's a humble guy and he'll tell you he didn't do anything and that it's all BS, but he did a lot for me. And I give credit where credit's due. But, we decided we wanted to open a company to help veterans work, flexible schedule, be able to go to the VA appointments, keep them out of trouble, and kind of give them some room for growth. And whether they use this as a stepping stone or a permanent home was fine by us. So we built the model first before we figured out what we wanted to do. We needed to make sure it was a low liability, a decent profit margin, flexibility and scheduling. Like, we had all our parameters wrote down that we wanted to do. And then the mold fit one thing that really worked for us, and that was power washing. Pressure washing, power washing, soft washing. There's actually a science to it. I learned this after the fact. And definitely had to get
the science to holding a hose and spraying a sidewalk.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of chemistry to the soap mixtures and, the chemical reactions with certain metals like copper. You can't mix copper with sodium hydroxide or hypochlorite, because it'll cause it to rust. And, there's all kinds of things you need to know. So me being me, I took the liberty to learn everything I could about it, get certified through a couple entities and start training my guys to do it. We were able to hire a couple guys, and one of them we actually found through our network who was going through the VA courts here in Texas. For those that don't know, if a veteran gets a minor infraction in Texas, they can be referred to the VA courts, which for us was great because his situation was very minor. But it allowed us to work with him, overcome his challenges, and get him back on his feet. So it actually kind of turned out to be a rehab program, and the judge in his case reduced his sentence to nearly nothing. So
Well, and just so the people know, I mean, up in the Fort Worth market, in Dallas Fort Worth market, it's actually called the Veterans Court. It's not called the VA's court. It's called the Veterans.
Okay, the Veterans Court.
Yeah, and in my hometown of Fort Worth, Judge Carr runs that here, so it's a really, really cool thing.
I think it's amazing. So we started doing that, and we were getting by. Everything was good. Everybody made enough money to get by, but something inside me was not locked in, and I ended up meeting with Trey Fuller, who's the owner of Leatherneck Lawn Care down here in Lake Jackson, and he says, "Hey, have you ever heard of the Vetrepreneur Tribe?" And I said, "No, never heard of it. Sounds kind of goofy." He says, "Brother," he goes, "you want to network with veteran companies like me?" He goes, "You're missing out. You need to be in the Vetrepreneur Tribe." He goes, "It was founded by Andrew O'Brien. You can get in there and you'll see a whole world of veterans." Well, I never heard about it. So I'm like, all right, well, I'll figure this out, get on social media. He tells me how it's spelled because, of course, I spelled it wrong 6 times.
Right.
And, I sent my request in, got accepted, and I'm looking around and I'm like, this is exactly what I've been looking for. Business owners who are veterans, they get it. We have that same mindset. Now, how do we work with civilians? That's what I want to learn because I'm struggling in that department. And, I started buying into everybody's stuff and listening to the live casts and podcasts. And, I linked up with a few people right off the go. One was Melinda Enflinger, who was just absolutely understanding. She owns several companies. And she was able to have me kind of work more in my network and not be afraid to get out there and take some chances. And the other one was Stephen Eugene Kuhn, as I'm sure you've networked with him in the past. But I was listening to him. And the first couple of times I watched him, I said, who's this guy think he is? Like, I don't even know, what he's talking about is common sense. And then I showed his video to somebody else and they go, brother, that's not common sense. Not everybody gets that. And I said, okay, well, I continued to watch him. And there was something about him I liked, but I didn't know what it was. And one day he started talking about, well, are you selling your services or are you selling a solution? And I thought about that, and it just resonated with me so much. And I said, you know what? We are. All we do is we get a phone call, we go quote a job, and we're doing the job. Everybody's happy. Maybe we close 70% of our calls. And then when it resonated in my head, are you selling a solution? I thought, you know what? I'm going to try this a little differently. So we got a phone call from an apartment complex in the local area. And she wanted all the corridors power washed, the stairs, the parking lots, everything. It was a big job. And as I'm surveying the job, I see all this grease and oil. And I walked down and I said, let me ask you something. I said, where's all this coming from? And she says, well, it's our trash service. We have a valet trash service that comes nightly and picks up the trash, and they spill stuff everywhere and the bags are leaking all over the floor. And I thought, well, is that up for bid? And she goes, well, it will be. I said, I'll tell you what, can we go over the numbers on that and see what you guys are paying for that kind of service? And she did. She was very honest about it. And I said, well, what if I was to bid on this service and provide receptacles that were watertight? I'll pay for them. And we do the trash service and we do your cleaning. And then we do an on-demand cleaning for you if there's ever an issue. But if we make the mess, we clean it up. Right there. She said, are you serious? I said, absolutely. Why? There's no excuse for this kind of a mess, and it seems to be an ongoing problem. So if I can fix your problem, then you don't need my cleaning services anymore. And she kind of raised her head up, and she goes, that makes a lot of sense. Let's do it. Well, that's a 6-figure contract, and the cleaning was a 6-figure contract. So I was ecstatic, and I really, really thank Steven from the bottom of my heart, and I'll name drop him every day till the day I die. I don't really care. Because it turned my company around. It turned around the way I did sales, the way I approached a problem. But here's the problem, Donnie. This was the bigger problem. Remember I told you there was a part of me that just didn't feel like I was locked in?
Yep.
I realized this is not what I want to do. I don't want to be a glorified janitor the rest of my life. Everybody always told me I'm so smart. You should be doing this or you should be doing that. But nobody wants to explain what the hell that is. And, thank you for the compliment, but piss off. That was right. Kind of the way I always approached people, if I didn't understand where they were coming from. So, I was feeling good about myself, which I didn't understand what that meant, feeling good about yourself. I wasn't happy that we made money. I wasn't happy that we changed the business. I was happy because I felt like I had a little bit of control in my life again, and something was working. So Mike Strange, who I told you about in Extortion 17, his father had reached out to me over the last couple of years, and he has a foundation now called the Michael Strange Foundation, Healing the Family, which is a foundation that helps Gold Star parents. And it takes Gold Star parents on these retreats at beautiful hotels. I mean, they're pseudo vacation-like to give a stress-free atmosphere. And they bring in professional grief counselors who have actually lost a child that can understand where they're coming from and help them through the grieving process and a path to recovery. And as Charlie will tell you, it's given them a piece of their heart back. I've been following this foundation for years, obviously, but I did not have the courage to go and support in front of his parents because of the shame that I felt. And, people will say survivor's remorse or I wanted the orders or whatever. It was too much to bear. And for whatever reason, I said, Charlie, I don't know if I could come, but I'll see what I can do. And Charlie says, think no more. I got your plane ticket. Your hotel's booked. You're coming up here to Philadelphia. I'm like, here we go again. Somebody's making me.
If anybody needs you to go anywhere, just buy the shit for you until you get your ass on it.
I guess I'll be there. I feel like I owe you that obligation if you're going to jump through. So, I headed up to Philly, on April 20th of this year. And this was a very, very, very pivotal moment of my life. And, I arrived in Philadelphia with Chief, by the way. And I'm going to try to keep it together through this part.
You're good.
But I seen Mike's father for the first time one-on-one, and it just all that pain just came right back quicker than shit. I mean, just overwhelm, emotion, sadness, pain, you name it. I felt it. It was just awful. And I hugged the man, and I thanked him for everything he's done, for everything he did, for everything he's doing. And I promised him whatever he needed, I'll be there for him. And I'm sorry I haven't been there in the past. And he goes, no worries. He's got that thick Philly accent, which kind of takes the edge off. But no worries, brother. It's all good. We got you. We got this. We're Philly. We're Phillies. Okay. So, we had guest speakers there for this foundation gala, which was a beautiful event at a country club. And they're doing a great job raising money, but they still do need support. And, so anyways, Drago, Tom Drazen was there. He's a former, very decorated Navy SEAL. I believe he was an instructor his last part of his career, and then a board member for the foundation. And Rob O'Neill was there. And everybody knows Rob O'Neill, the man that shot Bin Laden, who, despite what anybody might think about him going public about it, he's a great public speaker. He motivates people. And I do believe, because I saw it firsthand, I had mixed emotions about it. He gives the American people a sense of victory and something to look forward to and hope and freedom. And it doesn't matter what walk of life they came from. They thank him. They are so grateful to put a pivotal, decimal point in our war that said, hey, we accomplished something. And his story, which is don't ever give up. It's a great speech, and I got to spend some one-on-one time with him. We kind of hit it off and became friends, and as did Drago. Super great guy. Drago spent years in a communist gulag before becoming a U.S. citizen, and then went to SEAL training and had a great career as a Navy SEAL. Wow. So hanging with Chief and Drago and Rob, it was a humbling experience. But everybody treated us as equals. And I'm like, I'm not on the same level as these people. I'm a little guy. And, a couple of people that knew my career says, no, you weren't a little guy. So stop doing this to yourself. And I said, well, I'm content with it. To me, I was just a glorified security guard. That's the way I look at it. Yeah. And, so long story short, we're getting ready for the event, and the Philadelphia SWAT team and some off-duty guys are the protection for the event. And somebody had made the comment that Rob did not want anybody protecting him that wasn't Navy. Well, I didn't work for the Philadelphia SWAT team, but this gentleman named Bobby comes over. He says, hey, you're going to be Robin Drago's detail. Do you mind helping us out? well, no. He goes, I already pulled up your records, your credentials. I see you're certified in executive protection. You've been through, all these academies. He goes, we could really use your help if you don't mind. If you have ID, concealed carry, anything that we can put on file to at least get you covered, it'd help us out. So I handed him my ID cards, for, concealed carry, security, law enforcement, et cetera. He takes a picture, scans them over, reaches in his bag, hands me a 9mm. He goes, here you go. He goes, you're reading it. He goes, now do me a favor and tell us what we're doing wrong, because we've had 3 people tell us what we're doing wrong already. I said, oh boy. So I start giving them some coaching, some guidelines, and they're just, I wasn't even rude about it. I just said, what are you going to do if this was the situation, and how are you going to handle it if this was a situation? And they all looked at each other like, well, we didn't think about that. But it's very realistic, the scenarios I gave them. So, for instance, in executive protection, your number one job is to get the principal out of a hazardous situation. And I said, well, if I had to get out of this room, there's only 2 points of exit, the rest are glass windows. So if I go through any of these doors, where is a bug out vehicle? And he goes, oh, it's parked out there. Well, it's blocked in, nose first, with no keys in it. I said, that ain't going to work. And he just looks at me and he smiles. He goes, all right, brother, let's sit down and go over this stuff, because we obviously need to know. So we start going over it. They're happy. Super nice guys. I mean, they really were receptive to learning and getting it down. And we took care of it. The event went off without a hitch, and we all stayed good friends throughout the process. During this whole event, I met someone by the name of Dr. Cathy Greenberg. They called her the first lady of happiness, the Mother Teresa of the special ops community. She is a world-renowned behavioral scientist that specializes in human behavior, psychology, emotional intelligence, and discipline. And she works with a lot of the communities, including government agencies, from the executive level down to the operator level. And she pinned me out on the first day, and she offered to get me a drink. I didn't even know she was hosting the event. She was the host. And she says, can I get you something to drink? I said, oh, no, ma'am, I can get my own drinks, but thank you very much. She was dressed very nicely. And I said, no, I'm fully capable. Thank you. She goes, well, no, I'm here to host you. You're my guest. So I'm taking care of you. I said, no, ma'am. I said, I'm just here. That's not how this works. So I said, well, I'll tell you what, we'll make ends meet. I'll walk with you up to get the drink. And she goes, okay, that's a deal. So she goes, we walked across the room at the FOP hall, and she says, you're suffering. And I looked at her and I smiled. I said, are you a psychologist? And she not really. I said, well, not today, Doc. Sorry. But, it was kind of comical at the moment. The more I thought about it, I said, this woman pinned me. I mean, she pinned me up against a wall psychologically, and I wasn't having it. I've been in a good place. I was in a good place. I was in a safe place. I got a beautiful girlfriend at home. Didn't want to go back down that road of depression because I felt like I was out of it. Little did I know that I wasn't. So anyways, we get through the event, great event. And later on in the weekend, she had approached me again. She goes, we should really talk sometime. Maybe I can help you. And I thought about it. I said, you know what? What do I have to lose? The event's over. Let me hear what this woman has to say. And without going into too much detail or giving up what she does, because I don't know what parts of it she uses for her job and practice or whatnot, but she made me look at PTSD at a different angle. And when we change, perspective is a hell of an amazing thing, Donnie. And when you understand that people have all these different perspectives on one exact situation, and you can learn to respect those other perspectives, you will start to see life differently. And she said, if you saw a woman on the street, tattered clothes, beaten up and bruised, what would you assume happened to her? Or she didn't ask me this. Somebody else asked me this. And I said, well, I assume she maybe homeless and got beat up. And he said, well, what if she had just been hit by a car and she was walking home because she got to take care of her babies? I said, wow, yeah, I guess that's possible. So Doc explained to me the perspective of PTSD, and she goes, let's just consider for a second that PTSD is a moral injury. It's nothing more than a moral injury. Something about it's nothing more than a situation that happened that goes against your morals as a person, and now you're going to punish yourself for it. And I thought, that's kind of crazy. So then she had me do and forgive me if I get the acronym wrong, but an EMDR exercise, or EDMR, something like that. But she told me to close my eyes, sit quietly, put my hands on my lap, relax my body, and go to a very, very dark place in my life, most painful moment ever. It was either 30 seconds or a minute. And feel my body actually changing, muscles tensing, all this activity going on. And then we had a 30-second to a 60-second cool down. And then she goes, now think of the happiest moment of your life. And in that 60-second window, I felt the muscles start to relax. The tension in my neck went away. And really, really, truly, deeply focus on that happy moment. And I thought, okay, well, now I've been to hell and I've been back. What was the point of that? And she goes, the point is you control your emotions based on how you think. You control your body, you control your muscles, you control your endorphin release, all in how you perceive life. If you think of happy things, you're going to have a good life. If you think of negative things and you don't let go of them, you're going to spiral back down that hole. You are in control and nobody else is. You are responsible for your happiness. Nobody else is. You won't find it in a significant other. You won't find it in your children. You will not find it in a career. It comes from within yourself. And I thought, wow, this is some powerful shit. I cried. I cried and cried and cried. And anyways, went home and looked at life very differently. And I thought, I want to do something else. I want to do something very profound, very impactful. And I started thinking about what it is I'm good at, what value do I bring to the table. And the only way I was able to do that was to align my core values as who I am, Patrick, with what it is I want to do. And this was the key takeaway, and this is where I help folks now, is helping them identify exactly what their values are and making that their life. People don't want to be honest. Honesty is such an ugly truth anymore because we have social media and we have technology and we have all these outside influences that tell us what public society expects us to say, expects us to do. A lot of people say thank you for your service because they feel like it's expected from them to say. A lot of people say, oh, what is your goal every day? Oh, it's to go see my kid play baseball. But they really don't want to go see their kid play baseball because they can't even see their kid. Their phone's ringing off the hook. There's kids screaming. They got to pee. There's no bath. It's not a good experience. But we say these things because we think it's what other people hear.
Absolutely.
And for me, it's getting down to that brutal honesty, that brutal truth. And you're going to find happiness. It's all universal law, and it all does work. I thought it was all crazy voodoo stuff when I first heard about it. But it's true, because when you're happy and you look at people as an energy and you see a positive energy in people and you surround yourself with those positive energies, you're less likely to go back into that spiral. So when you get into a network, and Stephen Kuhn preaches this as well, when you are in, and what I've learned to call it is the power of 5. You surround yourself and interact on a daily basis with 5 people, whether it's your children, your spouse, your boss, your coworker, your friends, whatever it is. You're going to have people who are positive and you're going to have people that are negative. You are the sum average of those 5. You are a product of your environment. So if you are not in a positive environment that's encouraging, loving, and supporting, get out of it. It is the most powerful thing you can do in your life. It can be the scariest thing you ever do in your life, but it is simple. But simple isn't always easy. And for me, I changed my 5. I changed my 5 because if you're in a relationship and you're not happy, you are in a relationship with somebody that you feel that's all you deserve in life. So if you're not happy, you have the power to fix it. It might be scary. It might be sad. It might be all these other emotions. But one of the formulas that I'm working on kind of coining and trademarking right now is a problem minus the emotion equals the intelligent solution. You could take any problem in life, write it down, come back to it 10 minutes later, take all your emotion out of it, and just go back to your experiences and what you've learned, not the emotional bonds that you have with these situations. And then you'll find your intelligent solution. So if your boss tells you, you know what, I'm really tired, you're late for work, you're having problems, blah, 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 your adrenaline starts to go up because as veterans, we're trained to take our peripinephrine from fight, flight, or freeze mode into fight mode. So when we get stressed, we can sometimes go into fight mode. Some folks have a harder time turning that off than others. So when you can have the power to realize that you control your emotions, write down the problem. Boss is upset because I'm late for work. Okay, well, upset's an emotion. So let's just say boss doesn't want me late to work. Why am I late to work? Well, it's my problem. Own it. Do something about it. But just don't go, oh, my boss is a dick. I hate working at this place. You know, we let emotions control, and I was a perfect poster child victim of emotion. I wore my heart on my sleeve. And when we learn to remove that emotion, everything starts working out, from home to work to your children, everything. And to me, that was a big hurdle. For some, it won't be such a big hurdle. But I'm pleased and proud to announce that the things I was great at was physical security threats and analysis. I did testing for many government agencies on their law enforcement security forces, and also veteran retention, because as a recruiter, when I first got out of it, there was a short job right before I worked as a DoD contractor as a veteran recruiter for a headhunting company, and I was damn good at it, but I wasn't happy doing it. But then what I realized is that companies are saying, well, we want to hire veterans, and we have a veteran transition program. Well, they're doing it for one of three reasons. One of which is it's a tax break.
Check the box.
Yep. Number two is it's good public relations. Check the box.
Yep.
And reason number three, they really value veterans. But the problem is the ones that really value veterans is a much smaller number than we realize.
Absolutely.
So what I do is I work with companies and explain to them what the values are of a veteran. You can't look at a veteran as a hiring entity. And we hear this all the time in Vetrepreneur Tribe, and I hear it in a lot of other networks. Well, I've tried hiring veterans. They seem to work out, but yet they're not engaged, or they don't stay. And, so I'm just going to go hire, temps or whatever. Well, here's the thing. A veteran does bring value to the table, but if your values don't align with their values, they're not going to stick around.
True.
And veterans had a sense of purpose. They had a sense of accomplishment. They had a sense of giving back and helping those that can't do it themselves. So if you don't find the right fit for a veteran to feel like they have that camaraderie and the brotherhood and sisterhood that they had as a veteran, they don't feel like they have a purpose in what they do that's for a greater good, they are not going to stick around. It's not about how much you pay them. It's not about any of those things. They would rather take, from my research, they would rather take more vacation time than a pay increase, because they spent so many years away from their family that they value that time more than a pay increase. If you took a veteran today and said, okay, this company, I'm giving a 2% raise next year for inflation, and you offered the veterans and said, well, but you can have another week of vacation, what would you rather pick? What would you pick, Donnie?
Me, I'm taking the vacation.
Exactly. I would take the extra week as well, because I cherish that time with my family.
Yeah.
And that's aligning my values with their values. So, not to go give out all my secrets, but that's just one little part of what I do in helping them.
Dude, I love it, man. Holy shit, what a fucking ride. Dude, and solid thank you for sharing that with all the champions that listen to this fucking show, man. Wow. I'm not even going to try and recap it all, because it was well articulated, brother. Well done. And I can tell you, and my listeners will vouch, this is the only time I've ever shut up on one of my, podcasts and let somebody just tell their story. So fucking good on you. Getting me to shut up the trick. So solid shit, dude. So you're doing this full time with your company now, out speaking on educating companies how to hire and work with veterans. And I love that, and it's commendable as hell. My one caveat to that it's awesome and I love it, is it's like a marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Not 100% on the company. It's 100% on the veteran as well.
Absolutely.
And part of your message, and I'm sure you talk about it, is the veteran themselves has to step the fuck up and own their life, own that job, own what their shit they're going through, as much as the company needs to take 100% ownership of working with that veteran.
Yep. And that's another aspect of what I do. And if I was to try to put an analogy on it without giving my secrets away here, life is like, I'm giving a motivational speech in July, and it's actually going to be a different speech than I normally give, because this is going to talk about this analogy that I'm actually going to bring up. When you're born into this world, you're born with a big key ring full of keys, thousands of keys, and you're handed this, and you have to figure out what's going to unlock your door to happiness. It's certain folks in your life that help you sort through those keys and try different keys to unlock those things. And you'll get those aha moments, whether it's somebody listening to your podcast at home and they're going, oh, that makes sense. Well, you just helped them find a key to unlock another door. And what I'm doing with these companies is we find ways for the companies to take those keys and help the veteran unlock that door so they step up and get the things they need to get done. So if a company sees a candidate, and let's just say, and we know this is true, so let's not bullshit each other. Veterans suck at resumes. Most veterans suck at resumes. So we have systems out there, Resumex, that go and they scan resumes for certain keywords they might pick up, but the resume sucks. There is nothing from preventing these companies that want to hire a great individual by saying, hey, here's your resume. We've seen it. We'd really like you to get an interview because you have what we're looking for, but your resume isn't on point. Companies don't want to invest that much time.
No.
Nor do they want to invest that money. So here's a template that we use. Please, do this resume and fill this template. Not an application, but use this template for your resume. And then they can kind of, they're either going to take the initiative to get it done because they want to own it or they're not. And if they don't, then that's on them.
Well, here, and Patrick, I love this, but I'm gonna push back just a little bit on this ideal because at that point you're asking companies to do things that they're not doing for any other sector of the marketplace.
Right.
They're not going through resumes and reaching out to people from different nationalities, races, upbringing, college, this, that, and the other, and say, hey, by the way, your resume sucks. You need to come interview anyways, right?
Yeah.
You can't expect companies to do that for the veterans because they're not already doing it. I would tell you you're better off heavily educating the veterans on how bad their shit sucks, that they haven't put the detail into it because they don't know how and nobody's taught them how to put their stuff out there the right way, and say, look, you need to use this template to get your shit together.
Yeah.
And so educating from that, it's an easier ship to turn than to get companies to transition over to the other market. I love the tenacity on it either way. But veterans as a whole have got to start taking ownership of their work life, of that it's on them to get off their ass and go get the things they need to get the careers they want.
Well, while I agree with that, I would say there are plenty of companies out there that are doing that now, from recruiting companies to individual resume building companies that work with the veterans. Some of them do it for free. Some of them do it for almost $600 just to do a resume. Where I have found where companies are having more success, and when you mentioned they're not doing it with other demographics, I would have to disagree because there are companies now that are removing the option of uploading a resume and you actually have to fill in the box. So it's turned into more of an online application that formulates their own resume through Brass Ring or Max Hire, the systems that they're using, and that generates a company formatted resume. So encouraging companies that are already using software systems and databases for their sourcing and recruiting and headhunting, this actually allows them to capitalize on what they do with other companies, other demographics that helps a veteran. Because it's not to sound callous, but to go out and help a veteran fix his resume helps one veteran. But when I can take one company and fix their hiring process, it helps a ton of veterans.
I agree. And one thing I love about that, brother, is that levels the playing field. If you take the resume out of the equation, you no longer have the overeducated, no experienced person beating out a person who has the tangible skills and assets with no education. You take that out of the equation, and it goes based 100% on the individual and what they've accomplished. That's brilliant. I love that. I love that. So we're getting close to stacked up against our time together, man. And I got to tell you, this was freaking solid. I really, really appreciate your story. And between us girls, your patience for me getting you on the show. But how do people reach out to you? Because I have a feeling that once this airs, you're going to have two types of people really come knocking on your door. You're going to have people that are dealing with their demons, right? That are in the thick of it. And they're going to want to reach out. And then you're going to have companies that want access to you, your training, your help on helping them hire better, helping them hire veterans and your platform. How do people get in touch with you?
Okay, so I have two entities that people can reach me at. For those that want to overcome their demons and kind of learn from what I learned, keep in mind I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a licensed doctor or anything like that. All I can go by is my experience. I have a Facebook page called Veteran Think Tank, and if they're a veteran, the only requirement in that group is that they must display emotional discipline and be respectful of others. It is regulated. We don't get into politics and we don't get into drama, but it's where like minds can come together and solve real solutions with business problems. So it actually gets down to the micro problems of a business and your personal self-expression. And we help those that want to take their self-perception and align it with their self-expression. And when those two come together, everything else starts to work out. How you handle stress, how you decide problems, your interpersonal skills, all that stuff irons out. So that is the group for those that want to better themselves. For companies that are looking to have better veteran hiring and retention for sustainability, or if they want to test and measure where their physical security or proprietary law enforcement is, for any company that has security or executive protection, you can go either to my website at patrickjmudge.com, or you can go to my Facebook page, Patrick J. Mudge, as well.
Dude, that's awesome, man. I really appreciate that information. And I'm willing to bet you're going to get some people raising their hand and say, let's work together from this. Here's how I like to end every show, and I always catch everybody at the end of my shows with these because it's fun for me, so I don't care if they enjoy it or not. You were going to leave my audience with a phrase, a thought, a quote, something they could put in their tool belt that as they're going through life and they're getting stacked up against it, something maybe they can lean on and carry with them on their journey. What would you say to them?
I'm going to have to go back to my equation, Donnie, and that is a problem minus the emotion equals the intelligent solution.
Love it. Love it. And anytime you can take emotions out of a decision process, you make a hell of a lot better decision. Dude, Patrick, I really appreciate you being on the show, brother. This was awesome.
No, thanks for having me, Donnie.
Absolutely. Thanks.
It's my honor.
Wow, that was just an awesome episode. What a freaking journey. Man, when you hear stuff like that, you just get goosebumps on the ride. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to this episode. Please do me a favor, comment on it. Let this person know how much you value their story, their information. Please share this with your friends. It would mean everything to me.